Hey everyone, you're very welcome in. It's week 14 of the NFL season. This is Pro Football Ireland's week 14 NFL preview show presented by SBK. Michael McQuinn, Mark Hogan. No Jason Hayes this week. Jason's actually a taxi driver in Dublin in his free time, and he enjoys going on protest because of the fixed fares. Jason is away this week, but we're absolutely delighted to welcome on, I think, one of the best young voices for football, not just in Ireland, but in Europe. Colin Diggin. More from Colin in a second. Mark, week 14. We're almost there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what podcast you think we're on, Michael. This is not the Pro Football Ireland podcast, but the Pro Football Mayo Bridge podcast.
Hey.
Of course, if you're listening live, there's nothing you can do about this. But if you're listening back and don't want to hear more and more Charlie Smith, I'd suggest maybe skipping 10 minutes ahead because it's certainly going to get a mention. Digging, how long is it going to take you this weekend to get up to Mayo Bridge to watch along with Game 2 against the Bucks?
So I'm going to have to, oh no, that's on Sunday. So I actually could do it because, we obviously have all the college stuff Friday and Saturday. But I mean, I'm from Galway. It wouldn't be too bad. I think I can get the train or I can get the bus to Dublin, and only an hour up on the train. Be handy enough. And then someone surely give me a lift back down then, because they're the early kickoff. They're 6 o'clock kickoff this week. So surely I can get train back down and I can get the late bus back to Galway. So it's on the cards. It's a possibility.
Oh, serious crack up there. So, Michael, I'm still unsure of where exactly we were, the name the pub was. Have we settled on it being called Gorman's, the best bar, I suppose, not in County Kildare?
It used to be called Gorman's, and it's now called Laverty's. And yeah, just a big thanks to the people of Mayo Bridge of County Down, of really everybody that jumped up there at the weekend. It was absolutely fierce crack. And it's not that I didn't expect it, but certainly I guess when it was very quick, you were sort of thinking to yourself, will this go well? How will Charlie do? It was just hard to know how it was going to go. And yeah, just very, very proud of Charlie for a start, of his family. Obviously, props to Ty as well for heading over. And look, a big thanks to Conal as well, because that content during the week, we done more numbers of the weekend than a Super Bowl. So it was a bit mad. Just going to put it out there. Props to Kevin Hart for using the video, which Mark doesn't know about yet, on Amazon this week. Yeah, so the whole thing's mad. Good crack. Seriously though, delighted for Charlie. This is obviously going out on. We are live on a Wednesday night. This is going out on a Thursday on a podcast platform. It was different last week of Thanksgiving. If that lad's not starting on Sunday, I'm going to stop watching the NFL. It's as simple as that. I'm done. The lad had a 56-yard field goal. He had an onside kick, and he's just a good-looking young man. So he has to just be given the option and has to go. Conal, do you look at Charlie and think to yourself, life could have been very different? Because you're around the same age.
Yeah, no, but I'm the only one actually of us who hasn't met him. So I can't, I guess I can say whatever I want about him because he doesn't know who I am. But I mean, I was like, what struck me, I think, the most about it, because obviously, seeing him hit the kick, and when they scored the touchdown and they went for the 2-point conversion, was maybe one of the funniest things I think I've ever experienced, because you hype yourself up for it, and then when you look at the score, you're like, they're going for 2 here, and there's nothing there's nothing Charlie can do about that. But then obviously he hits a 56-yarder, and every tweet from every Saints fan, in the world is basically like, how is this guy, like, how have we hidden this guy for 2 years or a year and a half at this stage? Like, it's insane. That it was something that they didn't realize, was he was there pretty much most of the time. And obviously he's the same age as, or around the same age as me. I think he's maybe a year or 2 older. But like, there's a lot of people I know who are younger than me, or interested in NFL and all that sort of stuff. And it's something that hasn't been brought to me directly, but I know if someone ever came to me and was like, do you think I should go for this kicking stuff, I would definitely recommend it. I mean, even just with the college guys, like, you're getting a free education, you're getting to live in some of the coolest parts of America, and you get to kick footballs for money now. Actually, not even for free, you get to kick for money now. And then obviously you have Charlie, who got to go and has been living in New Orleans for a year and a half and got paid to not even have to play games as well, but now he's getting paid to play games, so that's even better.
And it's something, Mark, that Connell and Dara and myself mentioned on the College Football Podcast, which is out now. Obviously, big weekend, conference championships, final seedings for the national championship are very early next week. But Mark, it's important to mention as well, like guys like Andy Quinn finishing his first year at Boston College, Sean O'Hare, Connell Big Ten award. You can tell me more about that in a second.
Best kicker in the Big Ten, like all Big Ten teams. So big prestigious award, like.
Big award. Lorcan Quinn from my neck of the woods, obviously having the record for his school ever in field goals. And he only started kicking the ball a year ago. Loads of different lads. This is a problem. There's too many lads now to mention. I believe that there's loads of different schools interested in guys, and it's only the start. But Mark, I guess the big question is: are we going to Down on Sunday night again? Is that the plan, or are we heading? Or what's
It's certainly on the cards. I have a visitor over from America this week, and we're like, if you want the perfect Irish experience, it definitely felt like that up in Mayo Bridge, right from the road in, Michael, on that wet, dark evening that we had. You, thankfully, and Lynn were able to pick me up. And we were like, where do we park the car, Connell? It was nothing too dissimilar that we might get in the middle of Kerry, where Michael was thinking we're going to have to pull up onto the curb here, because now there was, thankfully, a car park. What?
What do you mean, what's a curb?
Yeah. So no, what an experience Mayo Bridge was, and I'd happily go by it. But you mentioned the list of lads that have gone over, and I think actually it's worth mentioning Jude McAtamney as well this week, because I suppose from my own standpoint, you said Colin that you hadn't met Charlie. I've met Jude. Never DM'd him or anything. Obviously, supporter of his, but I think I personally missed out, and it was then a disservice to Pro Football Ireland in terms of graphics and stuff like that. It was just bad timing from Jude sometimes. That he gets his contract. I was literally in the Steelers bar before the Dublin game. I remember rushing. I remember sitting in a corner trying to do it on my phone, taking too long. And also, the IPP is massive for a charity because it's almost like a marketing machine, that IPP as well. And there's so much content that NFL UK is collabing us left, right, and center and asking us for footage and stuff like that. And there is that just general interest because the story of charity was told first before Jude McAtamney, that I suppose our support. And, Michael, you're saying that we're after doing Super Bowl numbers, and we're so appreciative to anyone that's gotten, in touch and, engaged with the content. We would also have loved to see that for Jude. It's just that I suppose Charlie does have a massive fan base, and you can't blame him for that either.
And shout out to Jude. Shout out to Charlie's family. We met loads of them at the weekend. I know Julie and Leo and all, Molly, etc. were down at the game in Miami. Just a big shout out to everybody. It was really, really cool, and it's ridiculous when you've got Connor asking Charlie a question about the rain, which has got 40,000 views on TikTok. I don't know why people are watching that, but I'm enjoying it. We'll take it. If Charlie starts on Sunday, I'm heading down. So I'm really excited. If I'm going down myself, I'm heading down myself. And obviously everybody's invited. I believe, Mark, that Connell is heading up north for the first time in early February, whenever Armagh play Kerry in the National League, and Tyrone Kildare is the weekend where, and this is an NFL podcast, myself and Neil Reynolds.
What division is that actually?
Don't worry about that. That's the weekend that me and Neil Reynolds are going to the Moy in County Tyrone. I should know where we're going. The Galway on the Friday night, and then we're going to Kerry at lunchtime. Can people just to start off here? I have so many people in Kerry say, "Oh, geez, yeah, we're gonna go." Okay, well, we need you to go. Okay, it's at lunchtime. If people book tickets over this weekend, I swear on my life, I will approach the Gooch to come and talk about the NFL. Okay, it's at lunchtime. There's no National League game to the Sunday. And talking about not having any games on a certain day, Mark, as we roll into week 14 here, we have got, as Mark was he done it so well this year. I can read it very well at the bottom here. The Niners, the Giants, New England, they're having a good season, and the Carolina Panthers are on a bye week as we enter week 14 of the NFL season. This is it. 5 weeks, 5 regular season weeks where so many things are going to happen. I am going to timestamp this, but like that game on Thursday night, regardless of when you're listening to this, is an absolutely huge game. I may stay up and watch it. It's that big, to be honest. And we got some big games on Sunday. And Mark, we're going to start off here with an absolute clanger, aren't we?
Well, Michael, it's so funny. It's so funny. I have the literal same thing. I don't want to timestamp this, but this is an outrageous slate of games, and it's so crucial in so many ways. I should have pulled, and it's only reminding me now. I was on the Athletic playoff simulator, and so many of these games this week, If you win, 75% chance. If you lose, 25% chance of making the playoffs. No more so than the game you just mentioned. We don't want to timestamp it, but it's relevant anyway. If the Lions beat the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, they put serious pressure again on the NFC North. But then they also drop out of that race somewhat if they were to lose. Same thing with the Cowboys are to win. They'll be a half game behind the Eagles, who don't play until Monday. We can't even touch that game, but we actually normally, we do kind of like maybe 2 or 3 game previews. We're doing 3 game previews, and we're doing a quick fire round of 3 more games and just looking at one side of the ball over these next 2 parts of the podcast, because it is an outrageously stacked week of games, and all of them are, again, the word I use, crucial.
And just one thing I do need to say before we just before we look at that first game, completely forgot. We're presented by SBK, our sportsbook partner. Odds only, no casino, no roulette. And to timestamp it even further, there's a 30% bonus on that Thursday night football game between the Lions and the Cowboys. But in terms of the actual weekend itself, we are giving away with SBK an NFL jersey this Sunday if you sign up and place a bet. All the information is in the bio in this podcast, folks. It makes a big difference if you sign up and click that link. 18 plus, please be gamble aware. Please only bet what you can afford, folks. I think that's common sense, but please make sure you only do that, especially when you're betting on teams like the New York Giants. Moving on, Younghoe Koo, is he still in the team, or what's the crack? Or should we move on?
I didn't pay attention to it. The Giants have not been at the forefront of my mind. Certainly not their kicking game this time of year.
Let's say,
it's crazy. Hey, no, it is crazy though. You know what? Younghoe Koo has felt the wrath of those fans, and I saw Robert Mays put up just a random comment. Actually, it was actually about the Arizona Cardinals, and the comment on it within 5 minutes was, "I've just seen your tweet about Younghoe Koo. You should have your credentials revoked." This is obviously not just a Jew thing, but the wrath of the Giants fans is absolutely outrageous. Another just mark against their name, taking them down once more. It's just outrageous how they react.
And just to say very quickly, there's a lot of great Giants fans in Ireland. Like that, we're just talking generally. We got death threats. I got death threats last month. So naturally, when you wake up and see Younghoe Koo do something that I've never seen in 15 years of watching this league, talking about 15 years of watching the league as we jump into this first game, Mark, that onside kick from Charlie Smith was the first onside kick by the Saints since 2013. So let's move on. We're going to go Bears-Packers, aren't we, this week?
Bears-Packers, yeah. Talk about one of these games that I suppose has massive bearings. And I suppose when you actually look at this on paper, how disrespectful is it to have the current number 1 seed, a touchdown underdog, when they haven't just been hampered by a massive injury or something on the weekend? I think there's definite signs of life from the Bears offense. Caleb Williams obviously developing. The O-line isn't letting him get touched. It's funny. This time last year, Caleb Williams had been sacked 56 times versus doing the numbers 19 times so far this year. So obviously that's been massive in his development. But of course, the run game as well just put up 281 yards against the Eagles, because I was kind of looking at, like, Ben Johnson last year had Sonic and Knuckles in Detroit. DeAndre Swift and Connell Monongai should have a similar nickname. Of course, when you go onto Twitter, I was actually able to see FanDuel had put out the question asking, what should they be? Fast and Furious was the most liked comment. I don't know if that's going to say, Connell, I see you laughing. I don't know if I thought it was that great, to be perfectly fair. But
I'm really trying to think of something to do with Swift, because I feel like Swift is like too good, and then like obviously Monongai is the actual power back there, so you can surely make something with it, but I can't think of anything at the moment.
Yeah, right. See, I'm not the genius that's able to get it done, but there was also the comment Swifties, and it must be like on auto like from people on Twitter, because that got an outrageous number of likes as well. But the two of them put up 125 yards each and a touchdown last week. I suppose the defense, though, is where this game becomes interesting. I know you guys are going to look at both sides of the Packers, but I'll kind of keep it brief. The Bears are obviously getting the most turnovers in the NFL with 26, and the Packers, though, have the fewest giveaways at just 7. So it is one of those when push comes to shove. But for me, it's that kind of conservative offense that Matt LaFleur takes with the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love has 3 interceptions all year. The Bears are good for 1 per game. So again, like, it's just a kind of a mismatch there. But that conservativeness is an approach I wonder, will we see more teams play against the Bears? I kind of think back to the Jags weeks 1 through 5. They led the league in interceptions, and teams were just kind of willing to take chances on them a bit more. The Bears are absolutely opportunistic. To say that they have 17 interceptions kind of speaks to that they're probably not being given the respect in that terms. But Matt LaFleur, absolutely. And I think that's where that 7-point spread comes for the Packers. I think that Matt LaFleur's offense, I mean, look at Jordan Love on 3rd and 5 and above. He's the best quarterback because they are backing themselves into 3rd and long and then giving an opportunity to him to throw the ball. I wonder, like if the Bears overcome them, I think it's a statement win, but that's the overcoming has to come first.
Connell, do you want to jump in here, lad?
Yeah, talk a little bit about, I think, excuse me, what could be the
I've got the exact same, by the way. I've got a full on. I think everyone's sick at the minute. I've got the back of my throat is completely gone. So I'm happy this podcast is tonight, basically. So yes, go for it, sir.
Yeah, I've got quite lucky, I think, with the teams I got to pick for talking about this week, and especially with the Packers, because, I think it wasn't really until last week we saw their offense start to take off, but the defense has been the calling card for them all year. I mean, the 3 games they lost, the 3 games they lost, to Cleveland, Carolina, and Philadelphia. The only reason they were even close in those games was because their defense was so good. Like, they were basically keeping the offense in those games. It was kind of insane. And then they go out and they dominate every week. I asked Dara just about a few things about them. He said they have the lowest blitz rate in the league, but obviously creates so much pressure because they just so happen to have Micah Parsons, who maybe outside of Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher in the NFL right now. Like, he had, I think it was like 10 pressures last week, 2.5 sacks. Like, he's just there's not, like, I'm not going to say anything more about him because we already know how good he is. But they have a lot of kind of, I think, underappreciated players on this team. Carrington Valentine was a former 7th round pick. He can't tackle, but he's great in coverage on the outside. Their defensive tackles have been much better than I think people thought they would be after losing Kenny Clark. It was one of the questions I had, like, how are they going to stop the run this year? And they just kind of replaced them with, Devontae Wyatt, Nazir Stackhouse, who was a guy I really liked in the draft last year, the year before. And they've been really good for them on the inside. Edrin Cooper at linebacker, again, has done really well for them. So they have a lot of good players, a lot of good young players as well. They definitely seem like they're sort of a year away. Again, you brought it up earlier. Their problem has been they haven't forced enough turnovers, which is kind of funny when last year, Xavier McKinney in like the first 4 weeks of the season had like 4 turnovers. He was getting an interception nearly every game. So if they can fix some of those issues, because again, one of the things I do believe in is forcing turnovers is the best way to win games. Like, if you look at teams who have a positive turnover margin over the last however many years, the likelihood that they're in the playoffs is nearly like 90%. The correlation is massive in there. So I think if they can force that a bit more, they're going to cause a lot of problems for this Bears offense, who, again, has played quite conservatively over the last few weeks, but been involved in a lot of close games and needed to get into games late. So if they can, pick up where they left off offensively last week and just keep playing how they have been defensively, they should be enough to handle this Bears team in what's probably the best matchup, at least of the late window anyway.
I think it's a really interesting game. But before I talk about the Packers offense a bit, I think it's really important for us to probably say, was it 1722 Big Boom or something, Mark? Get on. I'm going to put it on our link tree. Get on our link tree and vote for Dan Whelan. Ireland has never had a Pro Bowl player before. Spoke to Dan yesterday. He's really excited about some of the graphics the Packers are putting out the last few days, like Stranger Things and stuff, is just absolutely class. And no harm in the crack. If you haven't watched Stranger Things yet, you've nearly had a week. It's your fault if it's spoiled for you at this point. That's all I'm saying. And can I just very quickly say on that, having to wait to the 26th of December to watch the next part is a disgrace. And it's utter woke nonsense. I'll tell you what's not utter woke nonsense. The way that the Green Bay Packers played Dontavian Vicks, I can't pronounce his surname. Can somebody pronounce his surname for me?
Dontavian
Wicks. That's his first name, you might.
Dontavian. No, but I find it hard to say. It's last this week 14. Do you know? It's been a bit of a, it hasn't been a slog, but been in how many different countries, many times. And I'm not tired, but I'm finding it hard to say this.
Surely, if you've been to so many countries, you should be more worldly and be able to pronounce more names.
I know, but I was really impressed, Connell and Mark, with how impressive he was last week. I know it's been a more interesting start to the season, but in terms of how he was used for the Packers offense on a day last week where fourth down conversions really took over the game, he definitely stood out. He opened the day obviously with a 22-yard touchdown on 4th and 3, and obviously sealing the 31 to 24 win against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. I think what really I found impressive from this Packers offense was when the Lions were out of timeouts, Green Bay found a way to sort of keep the foot in the pedal and stayed at that one score lead with 1 minute and 55 seconds left. And the way that Jordan Love was able to get the ball down the field and just find a way to continue to move the ball when, frankly, they could have just found a way to just try and get the game out and just waste more time. I think it shows efficient play on the offense. I think it shows a lot of want to actually be there and a lot of want to really get an improvement on that offense, because there has been times, especially in the earlier part of the season, where they have struggled a little bit. Like, for people that maybe aren't fully in on the Packers in terms of knowing every player on their depth chart, they were pretty tight knit last week. They were definitely in a tight spot. They had no Matthew Golden. I'm going to talk about him in a second. No Savion Williams. So they have to rely on Romeo Doubs, Wicks, Christian Watson, and 6 passes, 7 targets, team high 94 yards. That's a big growth for Wicks in his 3rd year with a team. And I think for the Packers going into not just this game against the Bears this weekend, but they've got some big games over the next few weeks. I'm actually going to try and get out to that game against the Ravens in week 17. I think it'll be flexed to the Saturday evening. The Packers have got some big challenges coming up, and they need as many things that they have on the offense as you can get. I was doing a Steelers podcast earlier on, and they're signing Adam Thielen, which we'll talk about down the stretch in this podcast. When you have not enough help, it's an issue. But when you can try and get the ball out to different people, it definitely helps, especially when the Packers are trying to take it up a level in what is a very, very tight and congested NFC North. I believe it's the first time the Bears have been at the number 1 position since 2010 as well. I guess it's funny because I think, Connell, me and you were there the night that Matthew Golden got drafted. And it was almost like, the Lion King, the circle of life.
It was a wait of 20-something, I think it was 20 years on the dot for them to just draft a wide receiver in the 1st round. But it was crazy. And he hasn't been, I mean, I've talked to Dara about it and been like, what do you think of him? He said he's been good. They just, the offense just at times this season has been so bad, not because of him, but just because the offensive line, especially those early weeks, was really struggling. They're a little bit better now, but yeah, that's kind of the reason for it.
And he's only played 35% of the snaps because this is how loaded this Packers offense is, not because he can't play. And it's funny because when you're mentioning this, and I know you're fully aware, not just in the NFL sense, Connell, and Mark as well, but in the college football sense, when you got McMillan, Ibuka, Ibuka's got 52 catches for 791 yards. McMillan's got 800 odd yards and 6 touchdowns. You can imagine how Golden feels. Just give him time. I think it's going to be time for him. He could break out in the last couple of weeks. Time will tell, but certainly wouldn't be calling him a bust at any stage of the point. I guess the biggest thing for the Packers going forward over the next few weeks is small improvements. I very much, Mark, like Connell, went to cheat, and I just straight up asked Derek Harger this morning. I was like, doing a podcast, I need stats big time on the Packers offense. Well, Jordan Love in his last 10 indoor games is the tweet that Derek Harger.
That is the most Derek Harger.
21 touchdowns, 1 interception, 240 yards per game, and 116 passer rating. Jesus. The biggest question is, Mark, against this Bears team, and Connell as well, does Matt LaFleur trust his offense? Does he trust them to take that ball down the field on a combination of running and passing plays? Because if he starts to trust his offense more, this Packers team could go on a serious run. If he doesn't, it could be curtains in Green Bay. But we all know what's going to happen regardless. You're going to go to the link in our bio and vote for Dan Whelan to make the first Pro Bowl appearance ever by an Irishman. Did I do that justice? We got 4 likes on a Facebook stream in the last 5 minutes, so I must be talking some sense.
Yeah, well, you asked the question, does he trust his offense? His offense is not the Green Bay offense. That makes no sense, but let me explain. His offense is run the ball. He wants to just run the ball. It's to not trust his version of what he wants and throw the ball. That's what all the Green Bay fans have been crying out for. If that's what they see, I mean, that's what everyone wants to see, then it's a different offense altogether. But he hasn't shown us this year that he'll commit to passing the ball. He really wants to run.
Do you want to go into the second game, or do you want to look at the little team by team topics in terms of a part to part podcast work?
It is up to you. We did kind of do this back to front because we were supposed to put three together. We might actually have to lose Connell here because I did see Jason Hayes is in the chat saying, "What's the crack, lad?" So now that we know that Jason is free, sorry you've been demoted. We're going to get him on, Connell, and you can take a hike, please.
Person per podcast is, I think, what the rule is.
As we've learned before, we only have a 3-screen graphic. I never made them for 4. It would have taken me too long. So if an extra guest comes along, like F.A. Obade often does, we lose him. We can cut into that if you want, because we'll make up for it in the next half anyway, because this is going a bit long. So we'll do a quick fire round. So the games we're going to have in part 2, we're going to look at the Colts and Jags game, and then the Steelers and Ravens. But there was 3 other games that I just couldn't find an easy way of fitting into the podcast. So there was a very easy way. It's just to do things differently than we've been doing the last few weeks, and that was kind of
and we also get a chance to talk about way more teams than usual as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, these teams, there's some fantastic games, but we said we do quick fire because the Bengals are playing the Bills, the Texans are at the Chiefs, and the Eagles are at the Chargers. 3 of those teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles, we've talked about quite frequently lately, but the Chargers, Texans, and Bengals haven't been getting so much of a mention. So we said maybe the best way was to focus on the game. One each will take a team and kind of look at it from their point of view. Connell, you have the Texans.
What a win last week, Connell. What a win, my friend.
Yeah, that was not, I think, one I expected. But I think now, obviously, the more you dig into it, you're like, maybe you could expect it a small bit with the Daniel Jones injury, but I think it's the way that they responded, in particular, the defense responded to that injury. Obviously, you know, this season they've been the best defense in the NFL. They're the only reason that the Texans have even picked up a few of their wins, let alone this win last week. And again, they have at least the best pass rushing duo in the NFL with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter on either side. They have, a great job at stopping the run. But I think DeMeco Ryans' ability to change the way the defense plays week to week or every few weeks is what's kept them, this good this season, because last week or in the previous weeks, they blitzed a good bit, but they didn't blitz a whole lot. Last week, especially on third downs, when they know, Daniel Jones, who has a broken fibula, playing through it, when they know, look, he's not going to be very mobile, they sent 0 blitzes, I think over 50% of the time on third down. Like, they just wanted to pressure him as much as possible, put him in the worst situation. And more often than not, it worked. That's what they do better than any other team, is just, make it difficult for the offenses. And you have so many players. You have the 2 best pass rushers. Like I said, you have an offense that is starting to turn the corner a small bit to at least become league average and not be as bad as it was in those first 3 weeks. CJ Stroud is looking much better. The offensive line, again, is not great, but improving every so slightly. They're actually learning to run the ball. I mean, if you watched the Broncos game a few weeks ago, they had a few 5 to 8 minute drives where they were just trying to keep the ball out of the Broncos' hands, because they know, that's where they're going to do their damage, try and wear down the Broncos defense. So they know what they're doing. They're a smart team. They have more than enough players, especially on offense, like Nico Collins and Higgins out there. Like, they can cause teams problems when they want to, and they just know to take the right chances. And with the defense, they're going to be in every game. They just need to score. If they scored 24 points every single game, they're probably going to win 9 times out of 10, which is a very difficult thing to do. But when you're looking at the rest of their schedule, it's very possible that they could even top the division with, the rest of the games all the other teams have to play.
I suppose I have to ask you, Connell, it's becoming a topic of every NFL podcast, so why not introduce it to ours? Well, am I incorrect for not making us focus on this game? Because are the Kansas City Chiefs relevant if they lose this?
Yeah, I mean, well, if the Chiefs lose this,
hold on. He's biased for a start, so he's going to say,
just because my team has 8 wins in a row and are currently top of the AFC West, and
I believe, actually, Colin, I believe that the Chiefs would actually need the Broncos to lose this weekend for them to stand any chance of winning the AFC West. Am I correct?
I don't know. I haven't looked into that. But again, the Chiefs are just such an interesting team this year, because a lot of the deep stats are kind of favoring them. They think they're pretty good. They just they can't seem to win one-score games, which is insane because last season I think they went 10-0 in one-score games, and this year they haven't won, or they won their first one like 2 weeks ago. So I'm very interested in how this game plays out because it's probably going to be low scoring, would be my assumption based on the two defenses and the way that both quarterbacks have kind of been playing this year. But yeah, I think again, like I can't even pick a winner in this one. I'd probably lean the Chiefs, but if the Texans won this one by keeping it to like 17-10, that would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, Andy Reid was sounding confident. I was trying to pull up the playoff simulator, but you actually have to download the app to be able to do that. So I cannot, Michael, answer the question.
Woke.
I hear that is such on, and I pay for the subscription as well. It's like they're telling me to get the app now as well. Give me a break. I've given you my money. Don't take my data too. Michael, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills, of course, with Wayne, we are going to talk. And this was supposed to come after we've talked about the AFC North matchup between the Steelers and Ravens. We're going to talk about that in part 2 of the podcast instead. The Cincinnati Bengals are certainly in that race again, and they're playing the Bills this weekend.
I mean, if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan that hates my guts for teaming up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, now is your moment. You have waited a long time for this. And can I just say, firstly, why the hell are we not previewing this game? Bengals are still in with a chance, lads, but the way that the Bengals played against the Ravens last week would give a football junkie like myself or enthusiast hope in life. It was so great to see Joe Burrow going out again and playing football. And when I say last week, obviously Thanksgiving evening, they've had a bit more time off than everybody else. But just the way that the offense played generally definitely gives you hope in the way that they really put up against Baltimore. Now, Baltimore, of course, have their own struggles, and Lamar Jackson is not running like he used to at the minute. He's not fully fit. Derrick Henry at times was great, but also at times he couldn't get the job done. The Ravens couldn't get the job done effectively on second and third down situations, and the Bengals flipped the script and won the game. Well, Bengals fans, I give you this, my friends. I give you this. There's 2 games back in the AFC North. The Steelers, of course, as Mark said, play the Ravens this weekend. The Steelers play the Ravens in Week 18. The Steelers have to play the Lions on the road. And the Steelers also have to play the Dolphins in 2 weeks. That's one team. The Ravens don't look great. Now, Bengals fans, if you win out, you're sitting with a 3-1 divisional record. You've got the biggest tiebreaker going. You're starting to play a lot better. I'm not counting with I'm not talking about the Browns here. Okay, I'm talking about the actual football teams here that are in this division. I'm not going about like they're done. Apparently, Deshaun Watson's coming back, so we're not even going to start talking about that. But they're starting to play a lot better. Both sides of the ball, defensively, the Bengals are starting to play a lot better. But when you have number 9 back, when you have Joe Burrow back, you have a shot, you have a chance. And I thought in the second half against the Ravens last week, he really started to look good. He really started to look comfortable under center. He looked like he had momentum. He looked cool, calm, collected. The ball was coming out of his hand very, very well, very easily. And some of the throws, Connell, that Joe Burrow was making last week were absolutely, as Nasty would say, scintillating. They were superb. If they can go 5-1 in the division, so currently about 3-1, if they can go 5-1 in the division, that's the X factor. They could win the division with that. They have won their last 8 games started by Joe Burrow. Are you ready to go with this, boys? Are you ready for the stats of the week here? The Bengals? Good to go?
I don't know. You tell me.
If you're in your car, get ready for this, right? 3 of the 5 last games the Bengals have at home. The Bengals are 8-4 this decade in December games. Of the 5 remaining teams they play, 3 of them have a combined record of 11-25, are in the bottom, and are also in the bottom half of the league for points for and points allowed. The lone winning team they face this Sunday is Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo done really, really well, especially in the second half against the Steelers, but I really do believe, and we'll talk about it down the stretch, I really do believe the Steelers had a lot of issues. I believe the defense was very, very tired, and I think for as good as the offense and as good as Josh Allen is, I believe there are still questions about Buffalo's defense, and I really, really feel like the Bengals have a chance going in this week to Buffalo. Burrow against Allen, lads, box office. Joe Burrow's 5-0 on the road in December games. And you know what the best one of the week is? He's 3-0 in weather colder than freezing. The Bengals are going to beat the Bills this weekend, gents. And I'm resting Josh Allen on my fantasy team. That's a big statement to make.
You've already made the playoffs. I can't make the playoff.
You can. You
can.
No, you can't.
You can. If Connell beats me this week, he beats you in points. He can get in.
No, but like
if you, Michael, if you lose and Connell wins, he gets in.
But you're not going to let him win, are you? This is the whole point. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, Mark, if you want to go to the Super Bowl in February, you're winning that game.
Put a pin in it. I am looking at the over-under for that game. It is 52.5 for the Bengals versus the Bills. I don't know if it's going to be snowing, if that's going to impact that. But on SBK, that is far and away the highest points expected this weekend.
Hold
so
on.
You said,
you heard what I said there. You heard what I said there. Joe Burrow was 3-0 in games under freezing. They're winning the game, Mark. I see Burrow. Ice Burrow, man.
I'm more concerned about the weather conditions because it is in Buffalo, and if the snow were to dump all of a sudden, it's not that when a quarterback stat is it freezing weather related. I don't know about that and wins, but it could end up being a run game, and that spread is able to come way down. But as we move on, and you're after picking them, I will also look at the Chargers. Sorry, I will say, Michael, you are allowed to talk as much of that game as you wanted to. Because you said why weren't we talking this game? We absolutely are supposed to be talking about each and every one of these. The tiebreaker and why I chose the games that we did this week is that we probably have talked about the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles a little bit more. But again, the Bengals and Texans have become more relevant. And so do the Chargers. But I don't know how long the Chargers will stay relevant, as I suppose we look forward to Monday Night Football against the Eagles. A struggling Eagles team will not have to face a full-strength Justin Herbert, which is crazy. He had surgery this week to mend a fracture in his non-throwing hand. Didn't practice today, Wednesday. Mad to think that come Monday, you could see him holding the ball. Now, it isn't on throwing hand, but still holding the ball and patting the ball with that just surgically repaired hand. You see defensive players, when they have similar injuries, get a big, huge cast put onto it. So it's kind of like a bit freaky or spooky to be thinking that the quarterback is the one that you're going to roll out there. Otherwise, why is it injured? Because, of course, the LA Chargers have two mannequins and a cardboard cutout on their offensive line. They're not able to stop anything coming through. But there is good news when you look ahead. And what is it? It's the Eagles' run defense that the LA Chargers, and what a good time to be going up against it as they get reinforcements coming. Marion Hampton obviously been missing, I think, for 7 weeks now. We're now in week 5, so 7 games. Himself and Kamani Vidal, who's coming off his own career performance, 137 yards. When you look at his 59-yard touchdown there on the weekend, he showed it all: the vision, the shiftiness, the explosiveness. I suppose I mentioned that Fast and Furious earlier on. This could be another quarterback tandem that now that we're going to see. Like, either way, Vidal in these few weeks has shown that he absolutely is going to be able to hang around with the LA Chargers. Now, Hampton was supposed to get every single touch on the ground this year. That's not going to be the case. I don't know. Like, I suppose it's the vibe. When you look at the Eagles, are you thinking of them as last year's Eagles? Are you thinking of them as this year Eagles? There's nothing to say that the LA Chargers can't beat them if they get their ground game going. But it's like, yeah, when Justin Herbert's banged up, to just kind of do a Cincinnati Bengals offense and only have 2 wide receivers and then everyone else is protecting their quarterback. Like, it is desperate to think where Justin Herbert is, but I suppose that's the NFL, and we're going to talk more about quarterback injuries in part 2 of this, I think.
Yeah, we're going to jump into part 2 now. A bit of a shorter part 2, but coming up with a load to talk about. If you're in the car, beep the horn. We'll talk to you soon. Part 2 of PFI's Week 14 NFL preview show is here, presented by SBK. Folks, if it's Thursday Night Football, Cowboys, Lions, you got a 30% bet booster. Check out the T's and C's. Check out the link in the bio. 18 plus, please be gamble aware. And honestly, folks, we're giving away an NFL jersey this Sunday with SBK. Check out our posts on social media, primarily on X. And all you got to do is sign up, put a bet on. All the T's and C's are on there. 18 plus, please be gamble aware. Folks, some of the best odds out there. I don't need to see anything else. Be lucky to work in the NFL. 7 to 10 years, they have some of the best odds. Great to work with them. Check them out. Some great games this weekend, Mark, and you've decided to come back and join us for the second part of this podcast. We got Connell Diggin here as well. We're going to talk about the Colts going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And my God, Mark, do you want to jump in here? Because the Jacksonville Jaguars Colts game has a lot riding of it, my friends.
Yeah, and I suppose the Colts are in a really interesting position. Like, I was going to go and pull up something that I said, I think in week 2 or week 3. Like, Yeah, the Colts are great right now, but what are they going to be come December? And come December, they're having this panic attack right now. And, right now, everything's fine. If they win this game, it'll be like, okay, we're able to take a sigh of relief. If they're one loss away from complete implosion, and like everyone, like they had such a buffer to deal with. And you're talking in part one about what a game and a half back the Texans are, and like it is insane the slip that they've had on this and how what poor showing they've been putting out the last few weeks. The offense doesn't lose because of Daniel Jones. I will say that it's not that it's we're just seeing it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll mention in a second, but it's not just to pin it on Daniel Jones. We've seen him make incredible throws here and there. So it's not just on him crumbling. Why they are losing is because of the overall reliance on the run game. That has not been as dominant as of late. And when it's their calling card, teams have just gone after it. And that's what we said. It's like, how much has Shane Steichen got in terms of development as the season goes on? And right now, we're not seeing a whole lot. So much so that I had a graphic there a couple of weeks ago that I put out about Jonathan Taylor in kind of keeping with Saquon Barkley's numbers from last year. I missed it by a week. I didn't put it out. And I was like, well, if I don't put this out now, it's going to look so stupid because he's just going to fall back in this race completely because the run game just isn't as good. They're a one-dimensional team. And it's like, look, I know one of you is going to talk about, Michael, you're going to talk about the defense in a second, but it's like, if this team doesn't win with the run, it's not like you can say, oh, their defense is going to get it done. It's not like Tyler Warren is suddenly going to take over. And now Daniel Jones, I will say, he doesn't have the physical traits then to take over like a Jalen Hurts might. And when he helped the run game when everyone was going after Saquon Barkley last year, or Josh Allen or Drake May absolutely is doing it this year. Colin, you mentioned in part one, Daniel Jones, obviously the injury, but that stiffness, when it comes to third and 8, we've seen those guys that I've just mentioned be able to convert, whether that's a play breaking down or the threat with his legs. It's not the same when you have Josh Allen. So that is adding to that one-dimensionalness of that offense. And I don't think that they can suddenly just overcome that. The O-line is obviously consistently losing, I suppose is the nicest way of putting it lately. Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Houston, all have absolutely run through them. You've seen Josh Allen, his QBR under pressure from weeks 1 to 7 was first. Since then, it's 28. Teams know that they can go after them. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars pass rush doesn't grade out like the Texans or Steelers, but they do have another on-form pass rusher coming with Josh Hines-Allen this weekend. It is otherwise probably a very middle-of-the-pack defense. So if this Jacksonville Jaguars team makes the Colts offense look stagnant, then that's what I'm saying. It's panic stations. And have we ever seen this before? It happens once a year, it seems. The Eagles in 2023 were explosive as hell until they failed down the stretch. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings, until it came to playoff time, and we're like, Sam Darnold, he's no good. And even this year, we saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in September. You mentioned about Ibuka earlier on, Michael. They looked lights out. You can have absolute regression. It doesn't often go the other way around, but you can look so good because of your scheme. And when that scheme is figured out, it's kind of lights out.
We are currently live on X this week in this podcast. I believe X is currently down, so a big thank you to Elon. Must be all the Liverpool fans crying who aren't even listening to this podcast because it's live right now and Liverpool's playing. In all seriousness, though, you can get us on YouTube as well and obviously listen in the car throughout the next few days. Connell, you're going to talk about the Jaguars. Some really interesting points being there by Mark on the Colts.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're saying all these things about the Colts, and obviously the Jags are top of this division, albeit this is the first time they're going to play each other this year. The tiebreaker is record against common opponents or something like that at the moment. But this Jags team, like, in looking through everything, I'm very like it's a struggle to see how they've basically got this far. I mean, I don't know if they're good or not, and it's probably more not. But like they're basically the as I mentioned earlier, like they just force turnovers, and that just causes other teams problems. It's kind of the same with the Bears, where the Bears are the Bears are definitely better than the Jags. I'll give them that, but they're not as I think what their record says there is very much a case of like they've rode their luck a good bit this year. I mean, their offense, like probably what you would say their two best offensive players last year in Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. have like completely fell apart. I mean, Lawrence, to be fair, had 2 decent games the last 2 weeks, but he basically lost them the game against the Texans a few weeks ago with one of the worst fumble interceptions at the end of that game. I mean, I still can't believe he even threw that. And then, Brian Thomas Jr., who I'll give myself a bit of pat on the back here. Coming out in the draft, I wasn't as high on him as Dara. And then he kind of proved me wrong last year, where he was one of the best rookie receivers in the NFL. But then this year he's looked more kind of like he his selling point was, he'll beat you over the top, and he had just good enough route running to kind of cause you some trouble elsewhere. But the rest of the route tree has just kind of disappeared this year, and it's caused them a lot of trouble offensively. And really, the only reason they've gotten this far offensively is because the running game has been much better. And I think that a lot of that down is to Liam Cohen kind of being in charge here and being able to take control of that. Travis Etienne is kind of back to his best after a horrible year last year. The defense, again, as I said, like, they're just forcing enough turnovers to help win this team games. Mark mentioned Josh Hines Allen is the really only guy creating any sort of pressure on this defensive line. I also want to bring up the offensive line for this team. Has been actually one of the better ones in the NFL, kind of top 10 unit in the NFL so far, for one that has struggled over the last few years. To see them put that together, but still the offense struggle, is maybe a bit frustrating, I think, for a lot of Jaguars fans. But the defensive line is kind of in a similar situation, where it's Hines Allen. Arik Armstead is doing really well in the run and pass game, but he missed last week. He actually, funnily enough, Mark mentioning defensive players playing with a big club hand. He actually missed last week because he had a hand surgery, or he had a cast on his hand, and he decided not to play through it, albeit that being against the Titans. So, he wouldn't really struggle anyway. He probably could have played without a hand and still beaten the Titans, I'd say. But this is, these are two teams, this is a team that, again, I said they're going to ride their luck. But I think if you're looking at who wins this game, it's very much going to kind of define each team's season. Like, the winner of this game probably makes the playoffs. The loser, I think the rest of their season just kind of goes to the dogs. Like, the Colts still have to play Seattle, Houston, San Francisco left. The Jags have it a bit easier. They have to play Indiana again, obviously, later on. And they play the Broncos, but you wouldn't put it against them to lose a game to either Denver or Tennessee or to New York, to the Jets or Tennessee come the end of the year. It's like they're just such a strange team. Like, I've really struggled to pay them much compliments, because there's so many moving parts here. As to, they've won, like, any game they played against a really good team, they kind of just lost it and they got absolutely hammered. And against some of the worst teams in the league, they just hammer them. So a lot of their numbers look all right, but I think that's more because they've kind of evened out over the course of the season more than anything.
I think what makes this game so intriguing, and I think both of you guys talked about, Connell mentioned a few things there. I will talk about the schedules that both these teams have going down the stretch, but certainly, while I am going to talk about the Colts defense, I do want to just politely publicize my admiration for Liam Cohen and how much he is really trying to put his DNA, and not just on the offense and defense, but just generally on this entire franchise. I've seen a report. Excuse me, as my throat's going. I seen a report this week about them potentially looking to play 2 games in Wembley over the next 2 years each year. Good luck to them with that. That'll be a very interesting thing. I very much look forward to it. Mark, you're going to those games if we get them in London.
I'll be signing on the dotted line with Virgin Media as quickly as I can. I do not love. I love going to NFL games, but Wembley, I do not love going to.
I don't know. I don't like going to Wembley. I like going to Tottenham. I don't like going to Wembley. A whole different conversation. I think regardless of how the Colts got on last week, and this just isn't just on the defense, but just on the offense as well. When a team plays to an optimal level for such a long period of time this season, and when many people, the very, very vast majority of people, did not expect them to play to that level over that direct amount of time, there's always going to be a dip. I think it's normal to expect a dip at some stage. And it's better to have this dip now, or slight dip, than have it in week 16, 17, or 18. Unless they had won all their games out and they could have had a couple of weeks off. But I think from a form point of view, it's very, very rare for a team to go all the way for 22, 23, 24 weeks, play lights out and win a Super Bowl. There is always going to be the odd dip. at times last week, excuse me, the Colts defense was impressive. I think of the time whenever their linebackers there, Franklin's, tackle for loss and fourth down over the Texans with 5 minutes remaining. They have the ability to make some big plays, and they have the ability on their day. We know how good Taylor is on the run game. We know how banged up Daniel Jones is, but we know how standout this defense can be, and we've seen it in some of the weeks throughout the season. Weren't that great in the flesh in Germany, but they still find a way to make it work. Sauce Gardner being game to game is a real pity, not just for Colts fans, but for football fans. They need to stop the rot quickly on this defense in terms of losing games. He avoided an Achilles injury last week, but he is going to be sidelined for an undetermined period with a left calf injury, and that is a real issue. Like obviously the Colts were planning to bring him in such a big elite move where they intended to use him and also Tre'Davious Ward in static roles on both the left and the right side of their defense. But with that injury for Sauce, that's really going to obviously change their plan. Ward switched roles on Sunday and obviously went up against Nico Collins around that formation. That's a big issue for them, a bigger lift for him. And I think he came out and said on Monday that he didn't think he played that well. And Nico Collins, I think as Connell mentioned it there, had 5 catches for 98 yards in that game. Only the second game of the season where we've seen Gardner and Ward paired in the backfield for the Colts, because Ward himself was on IR and only had returned. It's not easy to see Sauce Gardner go down in the second play of a game. That's something that they need to look on, they need to work on. If I'm the Colts, I look at that run game for the Jaguars this week. I try and stop the run. But I think the biggest issue for me is, and it's something anyone that watches McAfee religiously will know, that they're laughing at the schedule that the Colts have over the next few weeks. Jacksonville on the road this week, Seattle on the road the week after, San Fran, Monday Night Football, the only primetime game they have this year, Chargers, and they finish the season at Houston. That ain't easy. They need to look out for this Jags offense this week. Lawrence finished the game last week 16-27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. But more so, he took care of the football. He's gaining confidence each week. And the thing that Lawrence done well last week was he was attacking the middle of the field very, very well. Yes, last week it was the Titans, and we all know the Titans are absolutely shite. But the Jaguars were impressive last week, lads, with how quickly they could turn the game around. And the Colts need to stop this if it pops its head up. Titans got a field goal on the first possession. And the way the Jaguars offense responded with a touchdown, and on the ensuing kickoff with special teams forcing a fumble, they turned it into a touchdown a few plays later. That is the sort of Jaguars team you're going up against, a team that does not stop, doesn't give up. And it might sound easy and it might sound like a bit of bull analysis, but it's a genuine threat when you're going into play the Jaguars. They're going to be up for it. They're going to be coming off a win, and the Colts aren't. The pressure is certainly on Indianapolis this week, and it's on Indianapolis over the next few weeks. They need to prove to the entire league that they are what they actually think they are, and they're not what they were for the first third or 2/3 of the season.
But going to what Connell said there, the Jags are a team that we do not know about, and or just cannot put a label on. Yeah. To say that the Colts are 2-point favorites against a team that, if you had said 4 weeks ago, they'd absolutely steamroll. That's how much the NFL has caught up to what the Colts are doing, that there's no faith in them being able to get across a team that they absolutely, any of the other AFC contenders you would expect to be able to handle the Colts by more than 2 points, or the Jags more than 2 points.
Time will tell. I really look at this game, and from looking at a bit of the tape against it, again, as the Titans, I just worry that the Colts are going to struggle when they've got guys in different roles. They look a bit tired, Mark, on that defense, to be honest with you. Along with the team we're going to talk about in a second, the Steelers, I worry for them going down the stretch here. I think they could miss the playoffs.
Well, and it's super interesting because I just pulled up our log for who we've talked about week to week, and the Colts are by far the team that features the most on this podcast this year, just because there's just been so much interest, and the ebbs and flows to their season has been of massive interest, and to say that it's just going to end with potentially not even making the playoffs, how much ink and airtime and minutes spent talking about this Colts team for them not to make the playoffs be absolutely mad.
We have one final topic, don't we? So we're going to look at this Steelers Ravens game. Or am I completely wrong, Mark? Am I completely wrong? Am I wrong?
I suppose the Steelers Ravens, but it's almost like a what went wrong for both teams or what is going wrong. And to give you an example, I will talk about the Baltimore Ravens if you're going to look at the Steelers afterwards. But I mean, just look at the offense. I suppose what is going wrong. I suppose Lamar isn't good or Lamar is injured. I'm not really sure which, but his accuracy is down. There's no explosiveness in the ground game. This team is one of the worst in terms of 3 and outs. Can you imagine saying that literally a year ago as the thick of the MVP race included Lamar Jackson, and to see where they're gone now? If you want to say you're a glass half full person, you can say that if Lamar were to get healthy, everything's fixed. Today, Wednesday, marks the first time in 4 weeks he'll have a full week of practice. But then the glass half empty, and probably where I'm at, he's missed practices for a toe, an ankle, and a knee injury. That was coming off missing 3 games because of a hamstring injury. I don't believe he's going to get 100% healthy because this is the NFL. And when he's not healthy, that has a massive impact on the offense. If you look at his average career running yards in a game, 60 yards. This year, it's at 20 yards. If you can't hide the offense's problems behind his legs, when you have an underwhelming O-line, you've a wide receiver 1 in Zay Flowers, that would be a number 2 on most other teams. He's headlining what you can say is one of the weakest groups in the NFL. Mark Andrews was always your X factor in the pass game. He's lost a step and he's trending towards the fewest yards and targets per game by a decent margin in his career. And then Derrick Henry, when you look at next gen stats, he has literally lost a step. He's just slower than usual. He's not hitting 15 miles per hour at a rate. So it used to be at 11.5% of runs he would hit that. Now he's down to 8%. He's literally just not as explosive. And unless there's a hole in front of him to run into, he's not having those big plays that makes the Derrick Henry aspect of this so impressive in other years. The defense is good, but when the offense hasn't the power to threaten some of the elite defenses they'll meet down the stretch, it's just tough. And when you consider this Steelers team, again, it wouldn't have been an afterthought that the Ravens would have beaten these guys 4 weeks ago. Case in point, we're talking there about the Bengals could definitely get back into this race. This is why I didn't want to look at the game in terms of a like for like. I think both these teams are slowly, I was going to say imploding, but slowly just like hobbling towards the finish line. The Steelers and Ravens are they're just not what we think they would be. And when you compare again, Lamar Jackson could have gone for another MVP title last year. It does actually show his importance that the team has just fallen to the wayside without him.
I was going to talk about just Mike Tomlin and just generally, I guess I've been very lucky to get to know the organization a bit. I'm still a Broncos fan, Connell.
Mike Tomlin's going to Penn State, apparently. No, well, he's been like, or people keep thinking he's going to go. He's absolutely not going to go.
A lot of people want that job at the minute. It seems at the minute. Where do we start here? I mean, the Steelers have got 2 games against the Ravens, Lions, Dolphins, as I said there, coming up in their schedule over the last 5 weeks of the season. The Steelers are going up against a Ravens team this weekend that are not a great Ravens team. The Steelers should be winning this game. Like there's no ifs or buts. If the Steelers believe that they are what they are, they should be winning this game. I think the whole, Mike Tomlin, is it time for him to go, etc. Let's have that chat in 4 weeks. Give them the opportunity. A team is going to win this division and make the playoffs. Yes, the team might go one and done, but just wait. Give it the opportunity to wait and have that conversation. I think some of the discourse in Pittsburgh this week has been completely merited. I think some of it's ridiculous. You're going to have good games. You're going to have bad games. Now, very, very honestly, the Steelers' run defense was absolutely atrocious last Sunday in the second half. The way that Aaron Rodgers, even the way that the offensive line protected them, was quite poor. And the Steelers looked like a different team going into that second half. I would be concerned for the Steelers this weekend going into Baltimore, because if Baltimore can get out and allow honestly, just give the ball to Derrick Henry. Because frankly, the Bills have worked out last week, and many teams have worked out how to run the ball effectively against the Steelers. And if they get out very early this week, it could be curtains. But certainly the Steelers should not be looking at the season being over yet. They've got 5 games left. Yes, they might not be playing to the level of the higher echelon teams in the AFC and NFC at the moment. But I'm sorry, you do a lot. You bring a lot of people in, you make a lot of change. There needs to be some sort of movement there over the next few weeks. The Darius Slay thing for me is an eye opener. I don't know what's going on there. While we're on this podcast, he has been picked up by the Buffalo Bills. But I guess as well, if you want to be somewhere, go get out. I think that's a really interesting one. Look at his backup, Adam Thielen coming in. I don't know. I do think I will say one thing. I think Mike Tomlin, for as good as he is, and he has struggled this year, his team has struggled this year to have an identity. He should be allowed to decide whenever he wants to go. You hear Big Ben talking about how he might be tired and a change of scenery might be good. Why should an NFL head coach move down to Penn State? It just seems like not on Connell's. This is nothing to do with Connell. This is a genuine conversation in US sports media today. Why would Mike Tomlin go to college football? He is clearly another run in him if he wanted to take a couple of years off and go somewhere else. He's done more than enough for this franchise.
You only need one, and we have perfect proof of that. Mike Vrabel. The message wasn't getting through in Tennessee anymore. He takes a year off, and what he's done with the New England Patriots, everyone's saying, like, how was he out there? It's like, it is when you are an extremely, I suppose, important and iconic figure like Mike Tomlin would be, he'll absolutely work out somewhere else. And look, I also understand the other point of view that it's like, maybe the message just isn't getting home. Like, it is jaded. It has gone stale. That's not to say that it wouldn't work out somewhere else.
Connell, who have you got here?
I think I'm going to go the Ravens because they need to win this. I don't know if you've seen their remaining schedule. Like, they have to play Cincinnati, New England, Green Bay, and then Pittsburgh in the final game of the season. Like, do you understand, like, that if they don't win this game, they at least are going to lose probably 2 of those games. If they don't win this one, like, they're basically out of it. Like, they would finish, again, if they went 3-5 or 2-5 the rest of the way, that has them, below 500. If they win 3 of 5, that has them above 500. And in this division is probably enough to win it. So they need a win kind of more than Pittsburgh need one, because Pittsburgh have at least a slightly easier schedule.
The Bengals could literally win the division with 8 wins. That's how crazy this is.
For the best division in football coming into the year, apparently. The Ravens are a 6-point favorite in this game. I don't know where that's come from.
And actually, the stat I think that stood out to me the most last week was in the second quarter, Derrick Henry didn't take a single snap. In the fourth quarter, obviously they were losing by so much, he didn't take a single snap, and I think he only ran the ball 10 times in the game. It was like 6 in the first quarter, 4 in the third quarter. Like, they just didn't use him against a team in the Bengals who we know how bad their defense is, and he wasn't one of the players who fumbled the ball. I think was it 3 fumbles? They had 4 fumbles. And he didn't give up a single one of them. So I know he's obviously lost a step, but he's still Derrick Henry at the end of the day. Like, he's still 10 times stronger and 10 times bigger than the majority of players on the field.
We'll start getting out of here in a second. We'll do a headache in a second. We're obviously talking about the NFC North there. I do see a question from Jer here of the AFC South teams who we were talking about there just a minute ago. Which one would do more in the playoffs? I would say the Houston Texans, just because, because none of the offenses in the AFC are more explosive than that. Defense is stout, I suppose, is my way of looking at it right now.
They still have the talent offensively. They still have CJ Stroud. They have Nico Collins. There's a chance, like,
coming back in a big way,
Nico Collins can have a big game. I know the offense isn't great, but they get the ball out quickly. Like, they know what they're doing, and they're just kind of playing around the problems that they have, and they're doing it better than we thought they should be doing it.
In your humble opinions, has Charlie Smith already cemented his place? Oh, thank you, Connor, for this one. In the Hall of Fame, or does he need 1 or 2 more kicks? I feel like we all know where we're coming out with that one. Michael, he's gone for the Hall of Fame, of course. Do you want to jump into your headaches? We've explained off air, Connell, what headache is. I hope that you understand it, but if you don't, launch in and give your interpretation what it is.
Connell listens to this podcast every week, and Connell's in for a stormer this week. I have Ashton Genty being a headache for the Broncos this week. I believe the Broncos, as good as they are, due a loss this week, and I believe the Raiders are going to beat them this week in the most un-Pete Carroll-like situation ever. That's outrageous, I know. But why not? Why not? Connell, give us your headache.
My headache is NFL draft analysts, because their mock drafts next week are going to be entirely different, because for all the good matchups that are going on this week, there are plenty of horrible ones. I think 7 of the bottom of, so in every division, the bottom team in every division is playing bar the Giants this week. So 7 of 8, obviously with all the bye weeks going on. And 4 of them play each other. So we have Minnesota, Washington, or sorry, yeah, we have Minnesota, Washington. I know they're second last. We have Miami and New York have to play each other. Tennessee and Cleveland play each other, which is probably the biggest flip game of these. Atlanta has to play, which doesn't even benefit Atlanta. So yeah, the NFL draft analysts are not going to have a good time, or maybe we'll have fun next week, because their whole mock drafts are going to be completely flipped with the amount of change with all the bad teams playing each other.
Starting to de-ice Daniel Jeremiah Connell. Just in time.
Good man, Connell, getting a great grasp on what headache is. It can go in any which direction. That's why I've struggled to be able to define it. My headache is actually, I'm giving a shout out to fantasy football players. It is, I suppose, probably a lot of final weeks.
How's your team getting on there?
Well, I have all the numbers, and that is exactly what my headache is going to be. Somehow I've outscored you both, yet I'm 2 fewer wins than Connell and 3 behind Michael. So I looked at our scoring. Connell, you like to score 107 points each week. Michael, you're 108 and I'm 117. But I think there's some collusion going on in our league, because Michael, while you concede 111 points and you, Connell, concede 115, I concede 129 each week. So although I put up better numbers, I concede more than you guys, and you, like I said, are 2 and 3 games ahead of me, and I'm eliminated. I want a public inquiry.
This is
last
the most
week
college football playoff argument I've ever heard in my entire life.
Last week, Jason beat me for the second time this year. Jason has beaten me by a combined 2 points this year, and he is 5 games ahead of me in our fantasy league. If I had one catch from Amon-Ra St. Brown instead of him rolling his ankle in the first quarter, I would have beaten Jason, and I would be in the playoffs going into this week. I wanted that public inquiry.
I have there's a podcast with Jeff on. There's no collusion in our fantasy league.
Typical of Michael now to be getting out now while he's fantasy teams going.
Well, I have to go live with Jeff. You know how hard it is to get Jeff Reinbold live on a seat, ready for a podcast.
I've seen the behind the scenes in Virgin Media where Jeff was supposed to be talking. They're like, he has 10 seconds. He's not in his stool. Get him into his stool.
Folks, check out Week 14 SBK. Link in the bio. Some great offers. NFL jersey giveaway. Link in the bio. 18 plus. Please be gamble aware. Check out the College Football Podcast. Massive weekend there. Big thanks to Connell for coming on this podcast as well. We hope Jason's all right. Hopefully the taxi have got the fixed fares. Mark, thank you for coming on as well, lads. We'll chat to you next week. Week 15 next week. We're getting there. Slong of file. Good night. God bless. Bye.